Заява незалежних міжнародних спостерігачів, експертів, юристів по справі проти колишнього прем'єр-міністра України, лідера опозиції Юлії Тимошенко. Пан Джері Прюс-Бутілович, адвокат-криміналіст, колишній головний прокурор Великої Британії, колишній головний прокурор Нової Зеландії, спеціаліст з питань кримінології та захисту прав людини. Майкл Апстоун, адміністративний директор з питань законодавства у Міжнародній недержавній організації Х'юманітат. Х'юманітат працює з релігіозними та політичними лідерами світу і розвиває міжнародні ініціативи щодо захисту прав людини.
Good morning. We're here as part of Humanitat's delegation to watch and comment on the trials of ex-Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko. There have been numerous newspaper articles and radio and TV productions indicating the difficulties that have arisen in this trial. There have been claims of this being a political trial, that there was no basis for criminal charges, and there have been continuous complaints from the defense team of procedural breaches by the courts, breaches of procedural correctness in accordance with the Criminal Code of Ukraine, Procedural Code of Ukraine, and also breaches of the European Convention on Human Rights. Our purpose is to examine the documentation that have been brought before the courts and examine the procedures of the courts and comment as to whether or not these procedural fairness requirements have been followed by the prosecution and by the judge. As the complaints have been made on numerous occasions, we've asked for complete transcripts of the proceedings so that we're able to examine them closely to be accurate about what in fact has happened. I may add that when we conclude our examinations of these documents, we will seek submissions or any ideas from both the prosecution and the defense to explain where the problems are. At this stage, it would appear that there are major complaints that relate to the ability for the defense to properly prepare their cases. Insufficient time being granted, firstly, in terms of the documents when they were served and when the trial had to start, and also insufficient time to prepare as the trial continues. This is unprecedented, I am told, by local lawyers, where trials started early in the morning and continue to 6, 7, or even 8 o'clock at night. Any person who is involved in court process would know that when lawyers finish the day's hearing, they must go back and read what happened during the day to prepare for next day. Well, I'm told by the legal team that represents Yulia Tymoshenko that they have no time. There seems to be an unhealthy rush in pushing the evidence forward without adequate time for the defense to be able to respond. Another complaint that we've received and we're looking into by looking at the documents that will be provided is that numerous witnesses that the defense wished to call, I understand there was a number of 32 witnesses defense wished to call to rebut the allegations of the prosecution, have been disallowed and only 2 allowed. So any allegations that have been made by the prosecution cannot effectively be rebutted by the defense because the judge has prohibited those witnesses from being called. Now, we are waiting for the documentation to examine those witnesses' validity and see if their evidence, in fact, would have made a difference. Because if it did, then denial of those witnesses being called effectively destroys any possibility of a defense that would be credible. These are matters that obviously will at some stage no doubt be considered by the European Court of Human Rights, because these sort of procedural breaches inevitably go through the process of appeal within the court system. But having read the Helsinki report, it suggests that the court processes here of appeal are severely impeded by the power of the prosecutor over the judges. I understand that 3 judges of the Court of Appeal have been prosecuted by the Department of Prosecution because they found the appeal for the defense. If this is indeed the case, and this is something we need to examine, then the whole validity of the appeal process would also come into question. Amongst the other issues that have arisen besides denial of time, and we haven't been able to attend very many court hearings because of the short time that we've been here, is that attending court late yesterday, when the defense made a submission that the file that they were given of the prosecution documents, in fact, was missing 120, I think?
Over 200.
Sorry, 213 pages I think were missing. When this submission was made to the judge that they were not able to proceed because they didn't know what was missing and that may have been relevant, the judges simply said it's not relevant and moved on to the next stage. They were never permitted to properly raise the issues that were prohibiting them from properly preparing the defense case. Now, we haven't been able to fully research this whilst we've been here because the availability of transcripts have been very limited. The limitation has been caused untold by the incredible speed at which the trial is being run and the very limited time that the defense have in preparing the documents. We're expecting those to come to us, and in due course, as we examine those, we expect to put out a report setting out what we see as independent observers to be the problems in a court procedure. I've spoken to the defense team, and I intend to speak to the prosecution team to get a fair view of what in fact is happening. But my understanding of the process is that substantial procedural fairness has been denied to Mrs. Tymoshenko. Those denials of procedural fairness also amount to breaches of the European Convention of Human Rights, and consequently, this matter more than likely will end up before the court, European Court of Human Rights. I can't say any more at this stage because I'm still awaiting the documentation that we can examine, and we will provide a fully detailed report to you in due course. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that we have grave reservations based on the reports that we've been hearing about the appointment of the judge, the conduct of the trial, the repression of witnesses and other evidence, loss of papers, and really also connected to the actual indictment itself. So there are very serious allegations that have been made, and we'll be fully investigating these with a view to producing a complete report, which we will publish in due course.